What is going on, y'all? KM Best here. I'm here to talk to you about a deck that has been my most successful so far in the new season because of how good its matchup is against a lot of powerful top decks and how intricately and carefully you can play it to get incredible point output. That's right, we're talking about Move Bounce. My history with this deck is long and varied. Old-time KM besties may know that I originally made my bones writing about a move bounce deck way back in the beta. The first or second piece of Marvel Snap content I created was about a bounce deck using Human Torch and Iron Fist to upside the points package that was already fairly functional in bounce. That additional upside was valuable at the time, and now the bounce move deck has become such a real archetype that it is an actual archetype unto itself that has different matchup spreads from actual bounce. And that is due to a lot of factors, including, and I think most prominently, Madam Web. The thing that this deck does better than actual bounce is enormous points. It is a little bit less consistent, but the upside is much higher. The reason that matters in a metagame like this is because of the amount of people playing Surtur. Surtur has a very strictly limited number of points. It's a high number, but if you are able to go over that number, which this deck can, hello 32 power Human Torch, you can make that matchup flip in your favor very quickly. Much like other decks that are points and Cosmo decks built to prevent your opponent from interacting with your points, Surtur has a weakness to a deck that just is able to go over the top of it and flip lanes that should be guaranteed to be wins into lanes that should be guaranteed to be losses. Now, I realize this deck runs a lot of fairly expensive cards, and there is one major budget replacement you can make. If you are missing one of Frigga, Toxin, or Agent Venom, you should be able to replace it with Doctor Strange and have the deck still be mostly functional, in my opinion. I do believe that this is the best configuration of it, but I do not think it is such a massive gap that the deck becomes unplayable if you are missing one of those cards. It does unfortunately likely become unplayable if you are missing Madam Web. This is a move bounce deck, after all. The goal of this deck is to get gigantic dudes, copy them with Frigga, bounce them multiple times, repeat your move on reveals, big dudes, big power, big daggers, big torches, big vultures. That's the deck. Arana has a pretty unique role in this list where she is actually at her best when she's sort of being paired with Frigga. Typically, one of the weaknesses of Arana in the deck like this is that you aren't actually reasonably able to bounce her. So you end up with a card that is a one-shot, one-kill kind of card. And with Frigga in the deck, you actually get to effectively get multiple Arana triggers. So, like, for example, you can go Arana, activate, you can go Arana, play Iron Fist, activate Arana on a Human Torch. That'll make a giant Human Torch. Normally, in another move deck, that's not the greatest thing to do because you then need to figure out how you're going to get power on your other move cards. But if you Frigga that Human Torch, suddenly you are very live to do a bunch of truly horrific stuff. This is how Arana is a little bit better in this list than, in my opinion, she is in other move decks. She's very good here because of Frigga's ability to effectively copy the upgrade that she gives to your move cards. Of all the one-drop move enablers, I would go so far as to say Ghost Spider is likely the best. Now, there are space limitations that you're going to have to deal with Ghost Spider. She does have a little bit of iffy things going on, but ultimately, she is the one that can move a card to anywhere. And that makes her the most important of the move enablers at the one-cost slot. She's extremely good. She's extremely versatile. Bouncing her is an effective double up of whatever else you want to be doing. And frankly, I do not think you can play this deck without her. She is an absolute all-star in this archetype, and even more so when you are bouncing her. Human Torch is better in this list than in most other lists of this type that I have played, and that is a lot due to Frigga. Having a big Human Torch can sometimes be a liability in other decks that are playing the move package, because then you have invested so much in the Human Torch that you aren't necessarily able to win another lane. Frigga makes that point moot. You invest in the Human Torch heavily, and suddenly you have another giant Human Torch. Now, there are still weaknesses to Human Torch, especially if you're not able to throw priority. Invisible and Killmonger out of Saradex is very, very scary. Killmonger generally is very scary if you aren't able to throw priority, but you're pretty good at that. And of course, Shadow King being played a lot of the time is also a problem. Do also keep in mind that you can get Cosmoed on lanes where you're really counting on an Iron Fist or a Ghost Spider in order to make that Human Torch big enough to be worth Frigga-ing or whatever it is that you're doing. Make sure that you play with that in mind when you're looking to go for the nut draw with Human Torch. Iron Fist is the Julian Edelman of this deck. He just shows up, does the work, lunch pail, scrappy. That's what he is. That's what he does. You know exactly what Iron Fist does in this deck. He is a move trigger for 1 energy. You need that. It doesn't matter what direction it's going. You need as many move triggers as you can get. You especially need move triggers at 1 energy because of the synergy with Falcon. Dagger is a little bit less of a great Frigga target than Human Torch, in part because Dagger scales better later in the game. When you're usually copying things with Frigga, it's relatively early. It's before these lanes are really getting filled up. And because you're doing it before the lanes are getting filled up, you're not really going to have as much space to be a Dagger scaler as you would like to be. She's better later, when you can do her into a 4 full lane, and then suddenly she is a 12 power card. That stuff's awesome, and you can pull that off if you have the right combination of cards. You know, it usually involves a Madam Web. We'll get to that a little bit more when we talk about Frigga herself, but Dagger is still very, very strong. There's nothing that should make you feel bad about this. It's just when you compare her to Human Torch in the context of what this deck can do, she typically has a little bit of a lower ceiling, but also on the final turn of the game, a much higher floor, because she goes from 0 to 12 with 1 move on the final turn of the game, where Human Torch simply doesn't do that. Her web connects us all, perhaps the best card released for any move archetype in an extremely long time. Madam Web is a crucial card in this deck. Not only does she allow you to double up on move effects, for example, move something out of Madam Web, Ghost Spider it back to Madam Web, that's really cool, but you can also set those up in advance. For example, playing a Madam Web and then going Human Torch, Ghost Spider to the Madam Web lane, then you move the Human Torch out, copy it with Frigga, and you'll copy it with that extra move on there. This is something that I do a lot with Vultures, actually, because that just enables me to have a 317, right? Like, that's just very obviously good. Sorry, a 315. Sometimes it's a 317 off of Arana, but you know what I mean here. Like, this is just a very obviously good thing to be doing. And so setting up such that, like, you have 2 move triggers, using one of them from the Madam Web, copying that with a Frigga, that tends to be one of your more powerful, like, turn 4-5 things to do. Part of this deck is the bounce part, and Toxin's a pretty useful card, but I did mention, like, this is a very replaceable with Doctor Strange kind of card if you really feel like doing that. I personally believe that this is the best build of it, but I also understand that not everyone is opening every Spotlight cache, and I think there's a much larger conversation to be had about Spotlight caches generally. They aren't very good, is the TLDR, so I will say that if you do not have this card, Doctor Strange is a perfectly fine and functional replacement. I don't know what it would be if you're missing multiple cards. I think it gets a little bit dicier then, but I am pretty damn sure that you can cut Toxin and you'll still be at least a little bit functional. Falcon is surprisingly great in a deck like this because there are so many people who are playing things like Cosmo, and so people are going to try to trap your cards in a lane and think that you can't get them out with Toxin or Beast, and they'll be right about that. And so Falcon ends up being the card that gets your cards unstuck a lot of the time. Madam Web also a card that gets your cards unstuck. They have additional value to this deck because of the prevalence of Cosmo. It is not a game-losing play to get your 1-drops Cosmoed as long as you can get them back and get other shots at them, right? That's the important bit. Falcon and Madam Web allow you to do that, which means that what would be a pretty game-losing play is no longer one. This card might be the actual fringiest card in this deck. Like, this is the very obvious replace me with Doctor Strange card. This is anything but an actual Agent Venom deck. It's really just being run here because it can. there's almost no downside to having Agent Venom in this deck, so we have Agent Venom in this deck. It enables us to get more power if we start drawing our enablers late. Obviously, a 4-power Human Torch starts doubling way, way higher, and that has synergy with our Frigga stuff, right? So, like, let's say we do this, we top deck a Human Torch, we get that Human Torch to 8 or 16. That's a great copy with a Frigga. It reduces the load on the deck to have multiple moves available to it. That's really what this card is doing here. It's just a 2/4 that helps us do stuff we would already be doing, and I think it allows us a little bit more slack effectively if we start drawing pretty badly because of the way it buffs things like Dagger and Human Torch. This video is coming out on Tuesday, and that means that this is a video involving the card that is no longer going to be available by the time a lot of people see it. And I don't really know how to feel about that. I mean, I do know how I feel about that. It's bad. I don't feel good about it. I don't like the spotlight system any more than you do, I think, at this point. And I will say that I have found this card to be probably the best card in the slot here. What I won't say is that that guaranteed makes her worth purchasing, because I think she is like the 11th or 12th card here. And I think, again, incredibly replaceable with Doctor Strange. I have found her to be very useful, but I also think that you should not be spending 6,000 tokens for the 11th best card in a admittedly very good deck, but it is sort of contextual. I think she probably will remain in this list, at least the way I play it, but I don't think that's necessarily a guarantee of anything, and it's probably not worth opening specifically for her. If you are also missing Red Guardian and Copycat, though, maybe you can let this push you over the edge. Vulture's surprisingly good in this deck. I think he's very often, like, clearly third place in a lot of move decks. In this one, I do not think that is true, in part because of the way Dagger works in the mid game and the synergies that you want to have with Frigga. But, like, 2 moves on a Vulture is an incredibly Frigga-able card, and you can get that very easily with a Madam Web and one other move. So you can really set things up. Like, if you want to go like super, super nut draw, a lot of the time that does involve a 315 Vulture that you just get another copy of. It's really sick. Like, it's just a really sick thing to do. That's a lot of points. You have all of these decks like Surtur jumping through hoops to play 410s. And you can just be like, yeah, okay, I've got this 315 Vulture, and then I've got this other 315 Vulture, and together they're going to get some more moves on them. So they're going to be like, a 321, depending on Arana, 323. Like, these are big ass numbers that you can get with this card. And I really think that it is one of the surprising all-stars of this deck. You are a bounce deck, you play Beast. The basic thing that bounce decks have been about the entire time that they have existed in Marvel Snap, from that paste bin guide that I wrote way back in the beta to now, is the fact that 0-cost cards are really good, and 1-cost cards get bounced with Falcon, and then they become 0-cost cards with Beast. It's good. This is a really good card. This is a bounce deck. This is the bounce card. Beast is the guy here. Shout out to Hank McCoy. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for making it to this part in the video. I just said point and part combined, so it came out like port. God, I'm really just beefing it. I said camed out there. We're going to have to jump into the gameplay to save me from this. Thank you so much. Remember to like and subscribe. As always, I have been KM Best. You have been phenomenal. And just on the off chance you're interested in Pokemon Pocket, I did start a channel for Pokemon Pocket. You can find the link in the description. I'm not super shilling it. That's why I'm mentioning it 15 minutes into the video. I think if I were like really shilling it, I'd be mentioning it much earlier, but I would appreciate some support over there if that's something you're interested in. And if not, I totally understand. Thank you so much. I've been KM Best. It's gameplay time, and I hope you enjoyed the KM Boost. A year? Who understands that? I got a year to cash in. Who's with me? Holy fuck. Holy fuck. Awesome. Okay. Human Torch goes over here. Then we Frigga the Human Torch. Then we play Arana. No. Then we play Falcon and Arana. They're snapping me. I mean, I am a little horrified. Surely they don't have a way to blow up the limbo, right? Okay, so, activate Arana. Human Torch. Iron Fist, Human Torch. Activate Arana. No, I'm doing all options. Toxin. Activate Arana, Human Torch, Iron Fist, Human Torch. That's fine. You're not going to believe this? Wait, no, it's not fine. Is it? I don't think it is. It's not fine. We gained 32 on the left, but that's not enough. We could have done this other ways. Oh, wait, it is fine. What the fuck am I talking about? 32 isn't enough. They have 38. I'm an idiot. I was like, how is that math not mathing? I was mathing it at 22. Blade Jubilee. Hella. Okay. Okay, I'm getting hella. Okay, so activate Arana. Play Vulture here. Next turn, Frigga Falcon. And Vulture seems pretty big, right? Like, I'm copying a big-ass Vulture. Is it enough to beat Black Cat Jubilee? I don't know, but I'm going to snap anyway. Am I doing this correctly, by the way? The Iron Fist hits, then this hits. All right, I mean, let's just win, right? I ordered this correctly, yes? Yeah, let's just win. They're snapping me, which I assume means, like, they're just gonna Sarah the shit out of me. Or Red Guardian or something. Sure. I think it's actually this. Like this, maybe? You could fist? Yes, but I think I'm going to get Killmongered regardless. Why not fist first since I get it back? It's a choice between copying the Frigga or not. And try to throw Prio as best I can. And that means getting points off the board. I don't think I'll be able to do it, but I might be able to get it to a 50-50. No Cryo, but they could still have Invisible Woman, right? Invisible Woman Killmonger still gets me a lot of the time. They did not have Invisible Woman. I obviously couldn't snap back for the reasons of what if they have Invisible Woman, but, you know. They did not, so we got two 24s and just one easily. But right now, I feel like maybe I don't need to. My Human Torch, no! Damn it. Normally, I'd retreat to that, but maybe I don't need to here. Holy fuck. Icho. That's crazy. Agony, America Chavez. All right. That's the one we didn't want to pull. God damn. Okay, so if I go Arana... Hold on. Arana... Dagger here. Ghost Spider it back. Vulture here. I'll lose 8 here. I don't give a fuck. Let's go. I'm losing 8. Let's do it. I'm actually winning this game. Thanks to that Ultron. Very specifically, that Ultron. That's what we beat. Holy shit. We got him. We got him. You know what? That was a nice thing to do. I'm muting you anyway, but... Wait. It's 21st. I figured it out. I just like I beefed it. Do you remember the 21st night of September? Ugh. I mean, I don't hate it. Okay, I like that. Gross. So we get 8 additional from the torch. This is exactly what we wanted to draw there. Move Ghost Spider out. Falcon. Pick up Torch, Ghost Spider, Arana. Would we rather do this? I think we would. The question then becomes, do we put Human Torch down now? Because the issue is we can't pick up unless we Falcon. We have a limited amount of actual things that move. I think it is the Falcon play. Maybe it wasn't... I mean, like, the question is, do they have, like, a Heimdall or something, right? If they have Toxin, they probably don't have Heimdall. Their hand probably looks fairly similar to mine. So I can go like this if I want to. But it loses to them moving a thing over there, too. An alternative is just the straightforward play of that. Okay, it worked out. We made the straightforward play. We didn't outbrain ourselves. Everything worked out. You can just be like, that's our anniversary now. That's a thing you have the ability to do. They're 9 years too late. You could just do it still. All right, surely they don't have Cosmo. That's not Cosmo. I mean, surely they're leaving, yes? Surely they're fucking out of here. Yeah, that wasn't really worth actually figuring out.